Picture this. A young woman named Marguerite stands trembling in the great hall of a Norman castle in 1347. The lord sits on his carved wooden throne, his eyes cold as winter stone. With a casual wave of his hand, he declares that she will marry his stable master tomorrow, a man she's never spoken to, a man 30 years her senior with breath that reeks of ale and hands that leave bruises. She opens her mouth to protest, but the words die in her throat. She knows what happened to the last girl who said no. What you're about to discover will shake you to your core, because this isn't just Marguerite's story. This is the hidden nightmare that millions of women lived through for centuries, trapped in a system so brutal, so dehumanizing, that it makes modern injustices pale in comparison. Welcome to the darkest chapter of medieval history that textbooks barely whisper about. Today we're pulling back the curtain on a world where women were property, where consent was a foreign concept, and where the very foundations of feudal society were built on the systematic exploitation of the most vulnerable. But here's what will truly horrify you. Much of what happened was completely legal. The year is 1086. William the Conqueror has just completed his Domesday Book, the most comprehensive survey of medieval England ever attempted. But hidden between those meticulous records of livestock and landholdings lies a chilling truth. Women are listed right alongside cattle and pigs, their value measured not in dignity or humanity, but in their capacity to work, breed, and generate profit for their lords. Meet Eleanor, a serf on a manor in Yorkshire. She wakes before dawn in a one-room hovel she shares with 7 other family members. The floor is dirt, the walls are mud and straw, and the stench of human waste mingles with the smoke from a fire that never quite keeps the cold at bay. But Eleanor's day is about to become a living hell, because today, Lord Richard has noticed her. In the feudal system, serfs were bound to the land, unable to leave without their lord's permission. But for women, this bondage carried an additional horror. They were subject to what historians euphemistically call droit du seigneur, or right of the first night. While some scholars debate whether this practice was widespread or merely legendary, the documented evidence of sexual exploitation is undeniable and horrifying. Court records from across medieval Europe tell the same story again and again. In 1273, a manor court in Essex records the case of Alistair Rye, who was taken by force by her lord's son, her punishment for tempting him. A fine of 6 pence, nearly a month's wages. His punishment, nothing. In France, the Abbey of Saint-Maur's records from 1338 detail how female serfs could be given to male serfs as wives, without any consultation whatsoever, treated as rewards for loyal service or tools for breeding the next generation of unpaid labourers. But let's return to Eleanor. Lord Richard's interest means she has become his property in the most intimate sense imaginable. Canon law theoretically protected women from rape, but secular courts routinely ignored such protections when it came to serfs. A lord who forced himself on a serf woman faced no criminal penalties, only the possibility of a small fine payable to the church, and even that was rarely enforced. The marriage system for serfs was equally brutal. Lords controlled every aspect of their serfs' romantic lives through something called merche, a fee that had to be paid for permission to marry. But here's the twisted reality. Lords often refused permission if it meant losing a valuable worker, forcing women into relationships within the manor to keep their labor close. Some lords deliberately matched women with men they knew would be abusive, understanding that terrified, broken women were easier to control. Consider the case of Johanna Lafrancis. Recorded in the manor rolls of Wakefield in 1315, she was forced to marry Thomas de Sowerby, a man who had already beaten his previous wife to death. When Johanna tried to flee after 3 months of marriage, she was dragged back by the lord's men and publicly whipped as a lesson to other women who might consider escaping their fate. The legal system offered no protection. In fact, it actively facilitated abuse. Under English common law, a husband had the right to reasonably chastise his wife, and what constituted reasonable was entirely at his discretion. For serf women, this meant existing in a constant state of terror, never knowing when a look, a word, or even silence might trigger violence. Pregnancy brought no relief. Pregnant serfs were expected to work until the moment of labor, often in the fields or performing back-breaking domestic tasks. Infant mortality rates among serf families reached as high as 50%, and women who survived childbirth often faced years of reproductive servitude, bearing child after child, to expand their lord's workforce. The church, which modern people might expect to provide sanctuary, often made things worse. Medieval Christianity preached that women were inherently sinful, the daughters of Eve who had brought corruption into the world. This ideology provided religious justification for the systematic abuse of serf women. Priests routinely blamed women for tempting their attackers and counseled submission to abusive husbands as a path to salvation. Let me share with you one of the most haunting documents from this period. In 1348, during the height of the Black Death, the manor records of Helsowen detail how Lord William de Helsowen took to his chamber 12 different serf women over the course of 6 months. 11 of those women disappeared from the records entirely. The 12th, a teenage girl named Agnes, was found dead in the castle well. The official cause of death: accidental drowning. But here's what makes this story even more chilling. This wasn't unusual. This was the system working exactly as designed. The economic incentives were perverse and powerful. A female serf represented multiple sources of profit: her labor, her reproductive capacity, and her value as a commodity to be traded or sold. Lords calculated the worth of their female serfs with the same cold precision they applied to livestock breeding programs. Some of you might be wondering, didn't anyone fight back? The answer is more complex and heartbreaking than you might expect. Resistance existed, but it came at a terrible cost. Women who fought back faced torture, exile, or death. Yet some still tried. In 1381, during the Peasants' Revolt, women played crucial but largely unrecorded roles in the uprising. Historical fragments suggest that much of the fury driving that rebellion came from decades of sexual abuse and forced marriages. When the revolt was crushed, the punishment for participating women was swift and brutal. Many were burned alive as witches, their resistance reframed as demonic possession. The most tragic aspect of this system was how it perpetuated itself. Boys raised in this environment learned that women were property. Girls learned that submission was survival. Each generation inherited trauma that echoed through bloodlines for centuries. Yet even in this darkness, there were glimmers of hope. Some women found ways to resist within the system. A few became Brewsters, gaining economic independence through ale production. Others sought refuge in convents, trading one form of servitude for another that at least offered protection from sexual violence. And occasionally, very rarely, a woman might catch the eye of a merchant or minor noble who would purchase her freedom through marriage. But these were exceptions that proved the rule. For the vast majority of medieval women trapped in serfdom, life was a daily struggle for survival in a system designed to crush their humanity. The end of serfdom didn't come through moral awakening or social progress. It came through economic necessity. The Black Death killed so many workers that survivors could demand better conditions. But even as the formal system of serfdom collapsed, many of its attitudes and practices persisted for centuries. Here's what should terrify you. We know about these horrors only because some records survived. How many stories were never written down? How many women suffered and died without leaving even a trace in history? The legacy of medieval serfdom shaped attitudes toward women, consent, and bodily autonomy that echo into the modern world. The same legal principles that allowed lords to abuse serf women influenced laws about marital rape that weren't changed until the 1970s in many countries. Understanding this history isn't about dwelling on past horrors. It's about recognizing how systems of oppression function, how they justify themselves, and how they perpetuate across generations. The women who suffered under feudalism deserve to have their stories told, their humanity acknowledged, and their pain recognized. So what do you think? Does learning about these historical realities change how you view medieval history? Have you encountered sanitized versions of this period that ignored these harsh truths? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this kind of unflinching historical analysis interests you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because next week we're diving into another hidden chapter of history that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the past. The story of medieval female serfs reminds us that progress is never guaranteed, that human dignity must be actively protected, and that the price of forgetting history is often paid by the most vulnerable members of society. Their voices may have been silenced centuries ago, but their stories demand to be heard today.